welcoming you back to the desk of Caddicarus. Join us as we partake into a new installment of Current Quickies.
Hello my duckies, and this time we'll be having a look at Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Q. This game is brilliant. Yes, as most of you know, I'm a massive Uncharted fan, so I was excited for this game the second the teasers came out years ago. Then, I was lucky enough to go to London to play a build of the game weeks before the game actually came out. And when I played it, I was blown away by it and was even more excited for it. So then the game came out, I played it, and what did I think of it? Well... Oh, wait. Also, there's gonna be a few spoilers in the plot for this video with visual stuff as well, okay? So, just warning you, alright?
This game was a complete and utter spectacle and was a joy to experience. I don't think it's the best Uncharted game nor one of the best games I've ever played. Uncharted 4 does so much right for an Uncharted game that it definitely feels like the definitive gameplay and story experience Uncharted has. Yet there was one thing that kind of soured the game for me that I will talk about later on. Okay, so let's get this out of the way first. Look at this motherfucker. Look at it. Observe it. Absorb it. Appreciate it. Love it. I can't believe how good this game looks and how it's running so smoothly on a console with no frame drops at any point. Environments look like goddamn photos. The lighting is perfect. I mean, check out this bloody fire. My god, the water looks perfect. Look at it. Action and particle effects are everywhere and beautifully done. The animations are some of the most realistic I've ever seen, and the cutscenes and gameplay combine and mix up so seamlessly that it's probably the closest I felt to actually playing $1 million blockbuster. And even the more subtle visual touches, such as the facial animations during cutscenes, are just unbelievable, and even compared to Uncharted 3, the step up is just impossible to ignore. The facial animations also contribute to the next awesome part of this game, its story, not only for it helps the character interactions become so flawless and the emotional moments that much more impactful and impressive, but also for the story itself. Definitely the strongest story in the whole series, this game follows the typical Uncharted shtick of Nate being pulled into another treasure hunt yet again despite settling down. But after his supposed dead brother returns saying his life is on the line to get some more treasure, Nate feels like he has no choice but to jump back into the life-endangering action once again despite where his life is now. Now this may sound pretty basic for sure, but for a series strong on mostly popcorn feels, and the second the game begins it throws so many deep themes and twists and turns at you, from character conflicts, motivations, clashing, backstabbing and lying, that I personally not only had no idea where the story was going to go, but found myself deeply engaged with some genuine, very well done inner turmoil from Nate about where his focuses should be in his life and what's more important to him. The one he chose to spend his life with and his lifelong friends, or the only resemblance of family he has left and the life he actually desperately misses. Arguably, there aren't really any villains either. Sure, some characters are more hateful than others, but it's not a simple good versus evil story for a series like Uncharted, and it's all executed marvelously. And as more backstory gets revealed as you go on, more motivational drives from Nate's character get revealed, and more complicated and personal demons surface to show us how difficult the character's choices are. And yes, the Titus Hell script, impeccable voice acting and heartfelt moments pull it together all lovingly. The detail of story and character here even extends to scenes of walking around, which were done in The Last of Us, but done much better here, with the player needing to interact with particular things to move the story along, and the player needing to move the camera around and see the characters interact with them and the environment to add further believability and realism to their bonds and wrap future plot elements up with tiny details that are easy to miss. Things, for example, like being in a conversation while driving along in a car, but then getting out of the car mid-conversation. Not only true to Nate's slightly terrible attention span, but on returning to the car, the game then lets characters to take a second to remember where they were and then continue exactly where they left off after a little bit of back and forth with Nate, where in most games like this, you'd still be able to hear their conversation on the other end of the map. It's so cool and it feels awesome for the atmosphere. It's also awesome to see such detail added in, such as Nate as a kid looking around a mansion of priceless artifacts, but for treasures for players to pick up, you only grab toys because you're a kid, and having to control Nate around with a pop gun around his attic as he sadly reenacts the last moments of excitement he had in his life, and having you needing to control Nate as he leaves behind everything his whole life in this game has been leading up to, and hearing all the familiar music cues as Nate searches through his old stuff to tickle nostalgia of both him as a character and the player. Although I will admit I really do miss the Uncharted theme. Where the fuck is that? And of course the Crash Bandicoot inclusion, not only for a huge nostalgic overload, but for that added layer of expressing where Nate's life is, how normal and different everything is compared to the other games, and further cementing Nate and Elena's bond. Okay, so I've gone on about not the gameplay long enough, so how is the gameplay? Well, it's awesome and definitely the most refined and best playing Uncharted to date. For the most part, it plays exactly like the other games, and I've made videos about them, so I won't gloat about them too much. But suffice to say, the climbing, jumping, swinging, death-defying leaps, puzzles, treasure hunting, running to cover, and shooting assholes all returns, but it's all tweaked to brilliant. Climbing scenes are mostly totally open for multiple ways of getting to the same place and for the best hidden treasures in the game, which you'll always want to find if you want all the costumes or the ability to replay the game with bullet time or zero gravity. Fucking hell. Running and jumping is way more fluent, exploring is less stiff, and the shooting feels amazing. The right sounds, the right punch, every gun feeling different, and the AI aren't pushovers at all, not even on middle difficulty, as they like to use the environment in the exact same way that you do and flank you from all corners, meaning shootouts are way more kinetic, exciting, challenging, and makes you work with whatever two guns you can carry, and makes you work around each area to grab awesome drop weapons for particular enemies, so you have to be paying attention. And the addition of a tiny little red X on the cursor once you kill a particular target is a small inclusion, but one that proved to be insanely helpful for figuring out who's truly alive and dead for covering and focusing your shooting elsewhere. And it just feels good to see it pop up. AI partners actually do shit this time as well, from stealth killing enemies to actually shooting people. Thank you. Chase scenes and near-death shock scenes I was expecting, but they were so well choreographed and placed in this game I didn't see many of them coming, and made many areas way more nail-biting intense as a result, especially since the visual fidelity is so high. There are a lot of high drops the game likes to remind you that you're above. But of course we can't forget to talk about the new mechanics, first of all being the vehicles, which are fun to drive, and in the highlight of the game for me, chapter 10, you can use it to search all over the place for optional firefights, optional treasure hunts, optional discoveries to make you feel like you're on a true pirate adventure, and using the winch to solve awesome physics puzzles with the car or a boat like later on. And the puzzles themselves are on par with Uncharted 3 if you ask me. Not spectacular, but also pretty damn head-scratching on initial investigation, especially when death is involved. This death trap puzzle here was a favorite of mine, along with the secret codes for the pirate founders. And of course the grappling hook, this thing is awesome. It is exactly what it sounds like, with the ability to swing around, climb, rappel, and even incorporate it into combat to not only swing on top top of enemies and steal their weapons after a quick insta-kill, love it. But also shoot a one-handed gun while in the middle of a swing, love it. It adds more layers to the shooting, exploring, and it just feels great to do and be in total control of what would otherwise be a cutscene or QuickTime event. Oh, and I nearly forgot to mention the stealth. Where it worked in both Uncharted 2 and 3, it works way better here. With actual enemy indicators to how suspicious they are, more places to hide, more stealth kills to perform, including jumping and stealing, I love it. And the fact it is still totally optional in the right way, as every encounter is entirely possible with either playstyle of shooting everything immediately or killing everyone softly and swiftly. This all sounds perfect though, right? But the one thing that made me not adore this game and give it a 10 rating was in fact the beginning few hours. After collecting all my footage and seeing my entire playthrough of the campaign come up to nearly 15 hours, I can tell you right now that the first instance of classic Uncharted third-person action doesn't properly arrive until about 2 hours in at chapter 5, and the first stealth tutorials don't arrive until 3 to 4 hours in at chapter 7. Does this mean the parts leading up to there are bad? Not at all. There's still plenty of treasure hunting and platforming, and the way the entire story is set out and expressed through tiny player interactions with character dialogue while walking around are spectacularly done. Some of the best scenes in the game are in the first few hours. But for everything the trailers, gameplay, and Uncharted archetypes will lead you to believe, this game in comparison to the others does have a pretty slow start. An enjoyable and well-executed story startup for sure, but still pretty slow, and the really memorable and insane shit doesn't happen until a bit later into the game when it mixes both classic Uncharted gameplay, new mechanics, and subtle player interactive story unweaving perfectly. And even then, one or two places don't fully utilize the newer mechanics as much as I felt it could. Since when I played the early build of this game in London, I was meant to feel like most of the game would play like chapter 10, in which you do lots of open-ended exploration and optional content, and I was told this face-to-face by some of Naughty Dog themselves. But that isn't the case here, and it was ever so slightly disappointing to me personally, because of my gameplay experience beforehand. But hey, looking at it from a distance, it's still a fantastic game as it stands. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at this insanity. This scene is worth the price of admission alone, if you ask me. And I won't spoil anything right here, but I will just say that despite the ending encounter not being anywhere near as good as 2, it's still way better than 1 and 3 by testing your reaction time and body language reading to the max. And that ending is one of the most charming, adorable, and sweetest endings I've seen in a game series for a long time. No other words, it's just so damn sweet. It makes me sick, it's so sweet.
So, I'm gonna give this game a 9 out of 10. I personally feel like Uncharted 2 is still the better game overall as a video game, but this comes pretty damn close for totally different reasons, and it's better than 1 and 3 combined anyway, so it's still a fantastic way to end the saga of Nathan Drake. And hopefully this also means that Crash Bandicoot belongs to Naughty Dog again, because that would be lovely. Cute.